this is a little more of an in-depth look at Seri, my cat and dog deck. Seri, the Inseparable. So, whenever you cast a dog spell, create a 1/1 green cat creature token. Whenever you cast a cat spell, create a 1/1 white dog creature token. If you pay a red, green, and white and tap it, they will deal damage to any target equal to the number of dogs you control and gain life equal to the number of cats you control. So, we're going to be trying to cast a lot of cats and dogs. I did do this with Changeling for a while, but it didn't feel right. So I went to mostly cats and dogs with, I think, 2 or 3 Changelings were left in here. But yeah, let's take a look at the deck. So to start off, right off the bat, we've got the Maskwood Nexus. So creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So right off the bat, we're going to make everything a cat and a dog. That way Seri will trigger both parts of their abilities. If we pay 3 and tap it, we create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. We've also got Doubling Season, because in this deck we've got a lot of, well, Seri will hopefully be making a lot of tokens, but we've got a lot of +1 counter things going on here. So Doubling Season makes sense. We're going to take advantage of both those things. But we've also got Branching Evolution. So if, I should read Doubling Season. So if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under their control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. And if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those counters on that permanent instead. So again, because we're doing both, it makes sense to have this in here. Branching Evolution, though, because there are a lot of +1 counters in here. If 1 or more +1 counters would be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1 counters are put on that creature instead. So, just getting a lot of value out of those +1 counters. So, we got a lot of cards pertaining to +1 counters in here. So, let's take a look. We've got a Phantom Tiger. It's a cat. Comes into play with 2 +1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to Phantom Tiger, prevent that damage and remove a +1 counter from it. We've got the Saber-Tooth Mauler. It's a cat. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, put a +1 counter on Saber-Tooth Mauler and untap it. We got a Johnny's Pridemaid. When you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on a Johnny's Pridemaid. We've got Mau, Loyal Companion. It's got Trample and Vigilance, and if 1 or more +1 counters would be put on Mau, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. We've got the Tauren Mauler. Here's one of the shapeshifters, or ones with Changeling. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may put a +1 counter on Tauren Mauler. We've got Supply Runners, a dog. When they enter the battlefield, put a +1 counter on each creature you control. We've got Pledge of Unity. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Then gain a life for each creature you control. We've got Basri's Solidarity. We get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control. We got the Silver Flame Ritual. We get to put a +1 counter on each creature we control. Also, if at least 3 white mana was spent to cast the spell, creatures you control gain Vigilance till end of turn. We got the Bredegard Stronghold. So if we pay a green and 2 white and tap it and sack it, we get to put a +1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures we control. They'll gain Vigilance and Lifelink till end of turn. We've got Basri's Acolyte. That's a cat. Lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures we control. We've got Basri's Lieutenant, Vigilance, protection from multicolored. When Basri's Lieutenant enters the battlefield, put a +1 counter on target creature you control. And the funny thing is, when it or another creature you control dies, if it had a +1 counter on it, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. We've got Bright Palm, Soul Awakener. So he's got backup. So when it enters the battlefield, put a +1 counter on target creature. If it's another creature, it gains the following ability till end of turn. Whenever this creature attacks, double the number of +1 counters on target creature. That creature can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn. We've got Invigorating Surge. So we get to put a +1 counter on target creature we control, then double the number of +1 counters on it. We've got Courage in Crisis. So we're going to put a +1 counter on target creature, then Proliferate. We've got Domri's Ambush. So some removal. We put a +1 counter on target creature, and then that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So creature or planeswalker. We've got Swallow Whole. As an additional cost to cast this spell, we tap an untapped creature we control. Then we exile target tapped creature. But we get to put a +1 counter on the creature tapped to pay this spell's additional cost. So removal and +1 counter again. We've got Myojin of the Towering Might. It enters with an indestructible counter on it if you cast it from our hand, which we will, hopefully. If we remove the indestructible counter, we get to distribute 8 +1 counters among any number of target creatures we control and gain trample until end of turn. So with all these +1 counters and buffing up these creatures, we got to get damage through, and we're doing it mostly the old-fashioned way through combat. So we're going to trample is a big thing here. We want to trample our way to victory. We've got Grumgully, the Generous. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1 counter on it. The only downside is if we have the Maskwood Nexus out, everything is also a human, so Grumgully would become nothing. But without the Maskwood Nexus, all our dogs and cats will benefit. We've got the Great Henge. It costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. It's just all round great because we could tap it for 2 green. We gain 2 life. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under our control, we put a +1 counter on it and draw a card. Everything. It does everything for us. We've got Cathar's Crusade. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on each creature you control. We've got the Animal Sanctuary. If we pay 2 and tap it, we put a +1 counter on target bird, cat, dog, goat, ox, or snake. I think it's just cat and dogs in this deck. We got Legera, Glade Warden. It's got every creature type. And if you pay 2 and a green and tap it, you exile a creature card from your graveyard and put 2 +1 counters on target creature. We've got Scrounging Bander. It enters the battlefield with 2 +1 counters on it, but at the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of counters from it onto another target creature. So if it keeps getting +1 counters from other things, we get to move some of those counters onto other creatures. Gavany Township. If we pay 2 a green and a white and tap it, we put a +1 counter on each creature we control. We've got Ajani Goldmane. So if we +1 him, we get 2 life. If we -1 him, we get to put a +1 counter on each creature we control, and they gain vigilance till end of turn. Sweet. And if we -6 him, put a white avatar creature token onto the battlefield that has this creature's power and toughness are each equal to your life total. So I don't think we're going to be doing that. We're mostly going to be doing the -1 and the +1 when we have to. Court of Garenbrig. So when it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, distribute 2 +1 counters among up to 2 target creatures. Then if you're the monarch, double the number of +1 counters on each creature you control. Hopefully by then you've got lots of +1 counters scattered around. We've got Victory's Envoy. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1 counter on each other creature you control. So how can we not have this? If we're doing all this +1 counter stuff, how can we not have Mael's Aria? At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1 counter on each creature you control, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater. Then you gain 10 life if you control a creature with power 10 or greater. And the alternate win is you win the game if you control a creature with power 20 or greater. So it's an alternate win for our cats and dogs. We got Khazar, Ruthless Stalker. We don't have a Kima, Stalking Shadow, in this deck, so we're mostly using him just for, or only using him just for, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1 counter on that creature. We've got Pride Malkin. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to put a +1 counter on target creature we control. Each creature you control with a +1 counter on it has Trample. So again, we've got that Trample. Then we have Kodama of the West Tree. It's got Reach, and modified creatures you control have Trample. So the +1 counters mean they are modified, and our creatures will be getting Trample. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. So you get Ramp as well. That's pretty good. We've got the Ozolith. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. So you can save your counters instead of them just disappearing. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So pretty sweet. And we got Sigardia's Summons. So creatures you control with +1 counters on them have base power and toughness of 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types. So now your cats and dogs, no matter what they are, they'll be 4/4s with all those +1 counters, and they'll have flying. So good to get that damage through. So that was a lot of cards with +1/+1 counters. So what else do we have here? Well, we've got some buffs. So we've got the Pack Leader. Other dogs you control get +1/+1. Whenever Pack Leader attacks, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn to dogs you control. Well, that's really nice too. You can prevent all that damage to dogs. We've got King of the Pride. Other cats you control get +2/+1. I find cats seem to have more support, but I like those dogs. We got Kahira, the Orphan Guard. We're not using it as a companion, so forget that. But it has Vigilance, and each other creature you control that's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast, but it's because it's a cat, gets +1/+1 and has Vigilance. So buff and Vigilance. We've got the Feline Sovereign. Other cats you control get +1/+1 and have protection from dogs. Whenever one or more cats you control deal combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. So that's nice. We also get some removal for artifacts or enchantments, things that could be a problem. We have the Regal Caracal. Other cats you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. So, yay. And when it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. We've also got Prava of the Steel Legion. So with all these tokens we're hopefully going to be making from Rin and Seri, unless people keep removing them, then you won't be making any tokens. You'll just be bringing out things and putting +1 counters on them. But if you've made a lot of tokens, as long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+4. And if we pay 3 and a white, we get to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. We've also got Enduring Courage. Whenever another creature you control enters, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. And when it dies, if it was a creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. It's an enchantment. So it's nice because it's a dog. We've also got Bolt Hound. It's got haste. Whenever Bolt Hound attacks, other creatures you control get +1/+0 till end of turn. And of course, we've got Beastmaster Ascension. So whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on it. As long as it has 7 or more quest counters, creatures you control get +5/+5. So bring out a lot, attack, and you might get those 7 quest counters on your first attack. A few other cards here we got is the Rambunctious Mutt. So when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. So again, a little more removal. Especially for artifacts and enchantments. Hopefully your creatures will be big and scary on their own. And we just need to take out artifacts and enchantments that may hinder our things. We got the Quasali Slingers. It's got reach. And when them or another cat enters the battlefield under our control, so just when they enter, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Again, more artifact and enchantment removal. We've also got the Selfless Savior. So another target creature you control gains indestructible till end of turn. And we've got the Prowling Serpopard. The spell can't be countered, and creature spells you control can't be countered. Here we've got a little bit of ramp, because do realize we have some expensive things in here. We've got the Realm Walker, Changeling. It doesn't really have ramp, but when it enters the battlefield, we get to choose a creature type. Most likely going to pick cats, because there are more cats than dogs. They did have more support, so there are more of them in the deck. You can look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells from of the chosen type from the top of your library. We got the Loyal Warhound. It's got Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, search your library for a basic Plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. We've got Oreskos Explorer. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for up to X Plains cards, where X is the number of players who control more lands than you. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand. We've got the Greater Tanuki. So it's got Trample, and if you pay 2 and a green, it's got Channel as well. If you pay 2 and a green and discard it from your hand, you get to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. We've got Cultivate, so we get to search our library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put one of them into the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand. We've got New Horizons. So when it enters, you get to put a +1 counter on target creature you control. So again with the counters. And Enchanted Land has add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. We've also got Yangu, Wildcrafter. Each creature you control with a +1 counter on it has tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So we could turn all our +1 countered creatures into mana dorks. And if we -1 it, we get to put a +1 counter on target creature. And of course, we've also got Hamza, Guardian of Erishin. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a +1 counter on it. So potentially cost just a green and a white. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a +1 counter on it. So again, you can have a discount for quite a few of your creatures if you've got a lot of +1 counters going on out there. We've also got a little bit of card draw. Unfortunately, not too much, but Lenore, Autumn Sovereign. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. So another way to put +1 counters on things. But then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, we get to draw a card. We've got the Keeper of Fables. Whenever 1 or more non-human creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card. We've got Kudzil, Malamute Exemplar. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, so that's nice. You can shut them down. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control, each with a power greater than its base power, deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And we've got Hutley, Radiant Champion. So we can +1 her to put a loyalty counter on her for each creature you control. Hopefully that's a lot. You can -1 her so target creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. And if you -8 her, so I'm kind of hoping that you +1 her, you got enough counters so you can -8 her the next turn. When you -8 her, you get an emblem with, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. So another great way for card draw. And for the last few cards in this deck, we've got Initiate's Companion. So whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we get to untap a target creature or land. We have Blink Dog. It's got double strike, which is nice if you got a lot of +1 counters on it. Also, you can try to protect it by paying 3 and a white, and it will phase out. Phasing back in, like it phases out until your next turn. So we've got the Alpine Watchdog. It's got Vigilance, and that's about it. But it's cool. Just for the heck of it, we put in Minsk, Beloved Ranger, because I really wanted to put him in a deck. When he enters the battlefield, create Boo, a legendary 1/1 red hamster creature token with trample and haste. If we pay X, until end of turn, target creature you control has base power and toughness of XX and becomes a giant in addition to its other types. So hopefully, with a lot of mana, we can do that. We could buff our other creatures, or we could buff Boo. And the last card we have here is just a fun little thing. It's Lure, an older card. So enchant creature, all creatures able to block target creature must do so. If a creature has the ability to block more than one creature, Lure does not prevent this. If there's more than one attacking creature with Lure, defender may choose which one of them each defending creature blocks. So I like to use this kind of like the elves use the decoy and other things like that. Attach this to one of your creatures, attack with it and a bunch of others, and they all have to block this creature. That'll guarantee the rest of your damage to go through. So it's a little win con, but it's only good against one opponent unless your lure creature survives the attack. So that was the cat and dog deck, a little more in depth there. I hope it gave some ideas, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.